Hello, and you are here today. It's Hallie and and we are so excited. And whether you're tuning in on my podcast or you're tuning in on Hallie's podcast, we are really excited that you're here. Hallie, with your podcast, you normally do yours with Stephanie, and I normally do mine with Amy. So we love our co host. Today, you get just Hallie and we're diving into couples work. And Hallie, you run the Help Her Heal group. So you see a lot with people who are wanting to heal the couple relationship. In my position as a marriage and family therapist, there's a big focus on the whole family and on couples and relationships. So it's something that both you and I work with a lot, we care about a lot. And I would probably say is some of the greatest desires in healing and also some of the greatest pain and confusion in healing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think of when people find themselves in a situation where they're experiencing betrayal, oftentimes it's the first thing we go to is we got to get into some couples work. We need to see a couples therapist or a couples coach, and they want to jump right into that. And there can be some work, I believe, that can be done initially and early on to help facilitate healthy communication. And sometimes there's some things that need to be in place before we're actually ready to step into real relational repair around the marriage. And so that's why I'm excited to talk about this with you today because it can be confusing. And I also validate, like, we just need to get help with our marriage. And let's talk about what that looks like.
And in that validation, we know that betrayal is an attachment injury. We know that attachment injuries heal in attachment. And that's the thing that's causing most pain. So of course, we want to go straight to the thing that's causing the most pain and dive into that first and foremost. And so I so validate that. And the amount of people that have come to my office who tried to do couples straight off the get-go and it caused more damage because it was either done by somebody who wasn't specifically trained in
Mhm.
understanding early couples recovery after betrayal, or it was just simply one or both of them were not regulated enough to do any type of couples work. And
Mhm.
so this is where I really love Absett's model, where they break up the three, trying to remember if they call it stages or phases. I should know this.
I want to say phases, but I could be wrong too.
Okay. I'm going to run with phases. The three phases of recovery. It's funny because CSAT will do, now my brain's not working. I think they call it stages, and then absence will call it phases, and then other people will call it, it doesn't matter. But I'll tell you, some people are really passionate about it. But I digress. In that first phase with absats, we really need safety and stability to be able to do the rest of the healing work. And so often I see couples or individuals who want to do phase 2 work of the really deep grieving and mourning and phase 3 work of doing that deeper relational repair and that post-traumatic growth and moving forward. They want to skip all that, get to the end in hopes of pushing through it faster, and it just doesn't work.
Mhm.
There's no skipping if we don't have some level of safety and stability within oneself and within the couple relationship.
Yeah, when you were talking about that first phase of safety and stabilization that everybody likes to or would want to skip through, my first thought was that terminology in and of itself can sometimes be confusing for people that are new to this because a lot of times, especially from the guys, what I hear, like the word safety is confusing to them if there's not physical abuse happening. Now, if there's physical abuse happening, we're talking about a whole different level of safety that is needed. And the safety that we're talking about, of course, we need physical safety as well. And we're talking about emotional and psychological safety, which can sometimes be difficult to understand what that is. And so, starting there and looking at if we're two dysregulated people and we have a hard time communicating without things getting escalated, there's not emotional and psychological safety
Mhm.
there. And there's also, if they're still acting out happening, there's also not safety in
Yeah.
that relationship.
And that dysregulation, my nervous system to be able to settle down needs another person's healthy nervous system. If we're talking about co-regulation, I need another stable nervous system to co-regulate with. But if I have two individuals who are both completely dysregulated and they're trying to come together and be that safe person for each other, their nervous systems are going to be reading each other's dysregulated nervous system, and having that co-regulation is just not going to happen, which is why when you're doing couples therapy, when we get to the place that we're ready for couples therapy, having that regulated nervous system, each person can regulate to that therapist or to that coach, get that regulation there while they're learning how to do it together. And so that comes back to the very beginning where we as individuals need to be doing our work to start working through that dysregulation. And there's a term called early couples recovery work. How is that, or can we talk about, I know how it's different. I was trying to set you up for the question. Will you talk about early couples recovery work and what that is and how couples know if they can even do that early couples work?
Yeah. So from my perspective, early recovery couples work is really, it's about communication, first of all, in my opinion, like learning how to talk about the things that are difficult, that are causing the dysregulation, creating a safe environment for both people to be able to express. It's learning how to listen with an intent to understand and not defend or not turn things back. It's learning how to step out of maybe emotionally abusive patterns that are happening. A lot of times what I see is couples don't even realize that what they're doing is considered abusive. And so it's a lot of education on that and learning how to step out of those unhealthy patterns. And also first and foremost this is dipping back into the individual work, but if they're still acting out behaviors happening, then there isn't safety in the relationship. And it would be, in my opinion, not wise to try to repair in the state where there is still acting out happening. And so that is to me, like, first and foremost, if they're still acting out, to what level of safety does the partner need to be? There might need to be some separation of some sort, whether that be in-house, whether that be out of home, whether that be, there's a million different ways to get safety in those environments. And sometimes I think that's the best thing people can do for their relationship is to give themselves that space, even though it's really scary and uncomfortable or can be uncomfortable, but almost like pulling off the Band-Aid and moving into that more place of finding our individual selves first. So I'm getting off on a side tangent because we're talking about early recovery, couples recovery, but safety is that. And sometimes it's getting space. And then when I'm working with couples that are early, it's a lot about creating, me as the coach being the one that helps facilitate an opportunity for each person to be heard and to help facilitate an empathetic conversation when maybe they don't even know what that is. They may not have even, they don't even understand what that means because maybe they've never seen it modeled. They don't know what that even sounds like or looks like. So helping facilitate those healthy communication patterns.
Yeah, I like that you brought that up because that education in the beginning, a lot of individuals, when they come to us after betrayal, they haven't had any type of therapy. Some have, but a lot of them have had zero therapy, zero education on how to move through betrayal. So much of our time is spent in the beginning of just helping individuals and couples get information, see what the path forward can look like, get tools to handle day to day. And then I think the other piece is to come into reality of where you're at today.
Yes.
Like that piece, because the amount of couples, I'm chuckling because I was one of them who was like, oh, like, okay, all the information's out there. So now we get to just heal and move forward and we're good. And there was a certain level of, and it's really painful, but coming into reality and actually seeing where we're at, the reality of the damage being caused, and the reality of what it's going to take to move forward. And sometimes that reality can be really daunting, but when then we're working in reality, then we can actually dive in and use the tools that we need. So I love that you brought up the education and then learning how to have the empathetic conversations from the get go, at least trying and practicing. So early couples recovery is not necessarily we're meeting every single week and we're diving into the deep pain of the betrayal. It's more of we're trying to communicate. A lot of times we live together or we're separated, but we're trying to not just become these two islands. And so that early couples can give us some bridges while we're each individually getting stabilized. How do people know when they are ready for the deeper couples work? Because what I see is we work so much on creating safety within ourselves. We work so much on as individuals getting stabilized. But then sometimes I'll see couples get really stuck that they get so much of I need to feel safe, I need to feel safe, that then they're not willing to lean into any couples work when it's time because it is uncomfortable. And then anything uncomfortable can feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And so there's this really like sticky place of we do have to start leaning into discomfort to do more work, but then our brain screams it feels unsafe.
It makes me think of that term attachment ambivalence. It's where the thing that I want the most is for the one who's hurt me to hold me and help me feel safe and make it all better. And then at the same time, it's scary as hell because I don't want that to I don't want to allow myself to step into that place of vulnerability, of allowing that. And so I would almost say that if you're starting to feel some of that, where it's that can happen early on, so maybe that's not necessarily a good marker. I would I'd say a good marker for maybe you're ready to do the deeper recovery work or couples repair work is when you both do have that sense of identity of who you are outside of the relationship. You're starting to have some more intimate, connected conversations that aren't always leading to volatility. So if you've stepped out of the place of dysregulation constantly, and the other thing I would say is where there is no acting out continuing to happen. If there's still addictive behaviors or there's still sexual misbehaviors happening, then we're not ready for to repair the relationship. So that has to be first and foremost. There has to be safety that way. And then as you start to maybe feel comfortable in the individual place, but having interactions that feel connected, but you're not quite sure if you're ready yet, that would be an indicator to me of, okay, I want to and I don't. So if there is that kind of conflict in your brain where it's starting to feel safe at times, I'd say that's maybe a good marker. Any other thoughts from you? What would you
Yeah.
add?
No, I think that's good. And I do think that we have a deeper knowing when we connect ourselves of, okay, I think maybe it's time for me to lean in a little bit and just listening to that. And that's one thing I really work with in individuals is helping my clients listen to that deeper knowing. And when you have that, and sometimes a deeper knowing is like you said earlier, I actually do need some more space. And we honor that. Or that deeper knowing is, I think maybe I am ready to lean in a little bit, but I don't know what that looks like. And I'll say to people, that doesn't mean if you have built this safety castle for you to live in, that doesn't mean that you instantly have to pack up all your bags and go move out of the castle. It's no, maybe we put the drawbridge down. Maybe we then can choose. I'm going to let this person come in and out. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. But in healing the relationship, there's these corrective emotional experiences that have to happen, which means that at some level, we do step into some discomfort and then we can actually see it like, oh, this is safe. And then that corrective emotional experience then sends that message to our nervous system that says, hey, I know this was bad before, but look, we had an okay experience here. And then we lean into a little bit discomfort again, and we get that corrective emotional experience. And then our nervous system said, oh, I thought I was going to die and I didn't die. Okay, I can do this again. And so doing this, and it's this slow process of having these corrective emotional experiences. But I think what gets really confusing is I will see clients try to think how to describe this, either go way too far into discomfort or aren't willing to step into it at all. So if I were to like do a scale of zero discomfort is, or zero is I have zero discomfort and I'm totally fine. 10 is I am so emotionally dysregulated, I just can't function, whether I'm just completely frozen or my whole body is shaking and I'm so activated. You have the 0 to 10. I have some clients who will only be in like a 0 or 1, and that's where they just stay because they want to stay so safe and comfortable. Or I have some who go into situations way before they're ready, and they go, "No, I gotta lean in," and they're hitting 8s and 9s regularly and trying to lean in. We don't want either of those extremes. And so I think part of this is learning your own level of dysregulation. And this is for both partners, because I see both partners not paying attention to their bodies enough to know this, how to do this. But when I say discomfort, if we're at a 0, a 1, a 2, even a 3, that might be something of just noticing of, okay, I'm feeling a little discomfort, but it's still very low. I think I can lean in a little bit and sit in a little bit higher level of discomfort.
Mhm.
If I'm at like a 4, 5, or 6, that's something I'm going to go 4 or 5. That's something of, okay, I'm stretching myself. I'm expanding my window of tolerance, but I'm okay. It's very uncomfortable, but I'm okay.
Mhm.
6, 7, that's like oh, hold on, let's slow down. Let's just notice, do we need to step back a little bit and bring it back down? Probably do if we're to 6 or 7. If we're at 8, 9, or 10, we're at a hard stop.
Mhm.
We're too far. We need to get our body re-regulated.
Yeah.
And so really learning how to listen to your body. So for a lot of and I don't want to genderize this, but generally speaking, for a lot of my male clients, some of their early work is even learning how to listen and pay attention to their body, to learn what those signals are, because that's not something society has taught us.
Yeah. 100%. I love the way you described that because I'm just envisioning some of the couples that I've worked with where really what we got to do is slow it down, and we slow down enough internally that we are learning whether or not we can trust ourselves and learning what our body is telling us. And then we're tiptoeing into it slowly as we're both practicing because this is a practice. This is not something that I wish there was a light switch we could just flip, but there isn't. And so it takes like practicing and noticing and practicing and noticing and like going to the edge and going, okay, and now I need to take a step back. But being able to lean into that edge when the time is right and the safety is there. And that it's that concept in my mind of fear and courage exist at the same time. Like, it can feel scary, it doesn't mean it's not right. I'm gonna use the courage, and the courage comes from knowing that I actually have the ability to create my own safety. If this at any point starts to go the other direction, like, I know how to get myself to safety, and so that internal trust allows us to access that courage in the face of a scary situation, knowing that I'm in control. I can get to safety if I need to.
I love that. That piece of it. And again, I hope you hear in that the individual work, which is why we can't race straight into couples work, that we really do want this getting anchored and solid as an individual. And I'll just say too, depending on your upbringing and your past history, it might take you longer or shorter, depending on that, to be able to do this. So for some, you may have had a really challenging upbringing where you never knew how to be safe in your own body, or you never knew how to trust yourself. So it might take you a little bit longer to do that type of work than maybe somebody who came from a secure environment. And it sucks and it's not fair if that is your reality, but we still want to sit with the reality of knowing that based off of our trauma history or our life experience, that individual work will look so different for each
Mhm.
person.
I see something too that is challenging in this work of the individual work and like kind of moving, practicing, expanding our window of tolerance is that, and then particularly for men who are working to create safety after betrayal, the the female betrayed partner oftentimes is very dysregulated. So it takes a lot for them to manage what's coming up for them and then to hold space for her emotions and be able to create an environment for her. And the betrayed partner really wants them to do that right now, even when they don't have the capacity to do it. And allowing, giving, like, working with the couple to give each other permission to like slow things down and let him get regulated so that he can hold space for her emotions is a really challenging place to be, but also a necessary part of the work because for a betrayed partner, it's you need to listen to this. You need to hold space for my pain. And if they don't have the capacity to do it and they stay in it, what I see is usually more dysregulation that comes from that and then more pain that comes. So it is uncomfortable work and can be challenging for both to be able to give each other permission to slow things down and give ourselves the opportunity to regulate ourselves before we can step into those conversations. But I know that's a really frustrating piece for some betrayed partners.
Yeah. Yeah. What you just described is so spot on. And I want to give an example of what that looks like because, yeah, I see it all the time. What this could look like. I have a couple and she gets triggered. And I could give a million different triggers, but she's triggered. And she goes to him and says, "This is what happened, and I'm triggered." And now for him, especially if he is newer in his work, and I'm going to pull in some parts work here. For him, all of a sudden, his shame gets triggered. His anger at himself gets triggered. His childhood stuff where mom was always screaming at him gets triggered. Now we have these three big parts that are all screaming at him in his own head. And then he has this other part, number 4, that says, "Dude, you gotta show up for her. You push all that stuff down. You know what to do. You've learned the skills." And so he all of a sudden is trying to just ignore all those other parts and shut them up and is trying to show up for her. But because all of those parts have not been validated and have not been attended to, those parts continue to show up. So he shows up with all of these activated parts and he's trying desperately to understand and to hold her pain. And guess what? It's not hitting. Not even you're not listening to me. You don't hear me. You're not understanding it. And so she's getting more and more upset because he did not slow down enough to tend to those parts, to tend to the shame, to tend to his own disappointment in himself, to tend to that little insecure boy inside of him who's hurting. He has to tend to those parts before he can tend to her. And I just like I see like I and this is for the men who are listening, like I see you wanting so bad to tend to her right away. And for the woman, like I see you want tended to right away and you deserve to be tended to right away. But it doesn't change the reality
Yeah.
that if he does not slow down and tend to those parts first, he won't be able to tend to you in the way that you need it. So we have to be able to slow down and taking that extra time in the long run saves us so much more time.
Yeah.
So yes, Hallie, thank you for bringing up that point.
Yeah. Okay. So, which makes me think of now we're talking about as we move through the different phases, how do we get to the phase that everybody wants to get to is that post-traumatic growth and that relational repair piece of things. And what does that even look like? And how do we get there? As you've heard us talking so far, it's not as quick and as simple as everybody would want it to. And unfortunately, there's not a 10-step process for you to check all the boxes and then you'll be here. Everybody's situations are so unique and your life experience is so different that it really does take individual work, but of course, highly recommend getting some professional support around having somebody that understands what you're experiencing, guide you through this and give you some ideas. But really, the goal is post-traumatic growth. And I don't know about you, Alana, but for me, what I've learned with post-traumatic growth is it's not like this perfect fairy tale marriage now. It's not a marriage without conflict. It's not a marriage without need for repair, but it's a deeper connected, intimate relationship where you do take the time to understand each other, where conflict does come up, pain does happen, and we get really good at the repair piece. And it's not a lack of need for repair, but it's an ability of getting really good at the repair.
Oh, okay, that. It's not the lack of need for repair. It's that we get really good at repair. We should stick that on all of our refrigerators because our brain wants to believe, and this is just the faulty human brain, wants it to be like, this means that there's no more need for repair. The reality is if we have two humans working with another or two humans working together, we're always going to need repair. I need repair with my best friends from time to time. I need repair with people I'm in relationships with. I need repair with my kids. Like repair comes with being human. And so if we're focused so much on not needing repair and that means that something's wrong with us, then we're running off of a faulty equation.
Yeah.
So I love that. And going back to the AFSAT's model of healing, we do need enough safety and stability, but safety and stability doesn't mean, again, that there's no issues or no problems. It's that there's enough safety to be able to work through them. And I'm hearing Amy in my head. She'll listen to this at some point where she'll be like, talk about the abuse. Like, make sure we're talking about the abuse. This is that there's not still active abuse happening in any of these stages. So we have the safety and stability. We are allowing for grief and mourning. And then we are coming together, then we can grieve and mourn together. Like first we have to be able to do it on our own, but then learning how to grieve and mourn what was together and how to leave the old relationship behind. And then we start stepping into the new relationship. And then we move into that stage 3 where we are doing that deeper levels couples work. And this is where I will put a plug for we have a couples intensive coming up and Hallie's running it. I'm running it. Luke Gordon will be there and Morgan Ellsworth will be there. So there's 4 of us who are all doing this intensive. And in this intensive, we are pulling in tools from EFT, emotionally focused therapy. I love EFT because EFT looks at the cycles and the patterns, and we figure out A, what our nervous system is doing, and then B, what patterns that we have been running on, often subconsciously, and we start to break those patterns and we start to learn to do something different. So it's one of those things where with this intensive, we're leaning into some deeper discomforts of looking at some of these painful conversations, or we have some activities that will offer a little bit of discomfort in a safe environment where we can start practicing the coming together. This isn't for actually couples who are actually healed would probably still really enjoy this. But this isn't for couples who are brand new to recovery. This isn't for couples who are in a place of we're still getting triggered all of the time and we can't emotionally regulate on our own. But it also isn't for couples necessarily who have it all together. Although I don't know a single couple who has it all together.
I'm gonna call you on that. And who is that? I have not met
I
any.
have never met one. Again, because we're all human.
Yeah.
No, this is for those who do want to lean into some deeper work, who do want to come together, who want to take their relationship to the next level, have enough safety and stability that they feel like both of them can do that, and want opportunities that they're not going to get in their everyday life to lean in a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm so excited about it. Just every time we communicate about what we have planned, I get more and more excited that it's coming up, and I can't wait for the couples who decide to come and join us for those few days. And I'm just imagining the connection and the growth that's going to happen for them. And I'm just super excited. So we wanted to share a little bit about that. It's coming up on March 26th through the 29th. We're hosting it in Mesa, Arizona. The weather is beautiful in Arizona in March, and so if you live in a cold place and are looking for an excuse to join me here in Arizona in the decent weather, then usually March is a beautiful time of year. We have some outdoor excursion planned, which is gonna be really cool. We have some rappelling planned, which there's so many parallels to recovery work in rappelling, so we're gonna let you experience that together. We also have a
Can I say really quick too, like if for whatever reason, say physically you have a bad back and that's just not an option, you still will get to be there in the experience and you'll still get those connections. There's still opportunity for growth there. So if your brain just went, oh, nope, can't go because they are doing something that is more active, just know you'll still be taken care of. And you don't have to do anything. You absolutely cannot or don't want to. We're not going to force you to do it.
if you just heard rappelling, I probably shouldn't have started with that because will be the first one to tell you that it scares the crap out of me, and it's also one of the most exhilarating things I've ever done. And so I also validate the fear around it, but we're using a company that's safe, and this is what they do. And so anyway, we have one of my favorite gals who does yoga. She's been part of retreats that I've held here and private events that I've had her come to. She's awesome. She's going to come and do not necessarily yoga, but an attunement exercise with you. So don't be worried about having to do uncomfortable yoga poses or anything, but it's going to be more of an attunement exercise. And we are going to introduce you if you've never experienced breath work. We have one of my favorite breath work facilitators coming in. Breath work is one of the this is how I describe it. You could probably hear 100 different explanations of it, but it helps you facilitate movement of stored emotions and trauma, and it's a nonverbal process. You don't have to process verbally, but it helps move that stored emotions and trauma that's in the cells of our body, helps us to release that and get that moving. And it is super, I love it. It's impactful, quick. So if you feel like you have physical impacts because of what you've experienced, this is a great way to start helping facilitate that in a quick way. We're going to have somebody come in and teach some fun country dancing. There's also lots of parallels we can make with that. So we're going to have a lot of fun, along with we're going to do some good relational work in helping you identify your unhealthy patterns and work to step out of them.
Yeah, there'll be a really good balance between doing things as far as experiential activities, which means just experiencing it in the moment, and then also doing that EFT deeper emotional work. The one thing that I'll say that I love that we've done, Hallie, is it's only from, I want to say, generally 9 to 5 each day. Some days go earlier or later. But that way you have your evenings for the two of you to just connect, or there'll be optional activities if you want to connect with others. And so that allows you that downtime that you'll have time where we're keeping you busy and you're on, and then you'll also have time where the two of you can just spend time together however you choose. And that to me, just for how I'm wired, is a really good balance. So you'll get that nice balance there and you'll be taken care from start to finish. Going back to the couples work, if you took anything from this podcast, I'll say for me, is when it comes to couples work, nobody other than you knows what's right. And so really allowing the process to slow down and really listening to yourself on what you need. And sometimes we need support as an individual on how to do that. But as you really do that when it comes to couples work, whether it be do I join this intensive? Or do I do the early couples work? Or is it time for me to lean into that deeper couples work? Or do I need to do no couples work right now? Really learning how to listen to you will be the greatest tool and gift you could ever give yourself. I think that's how I'd wrap it up for me.
The wrap up for me is have patience with the process. Don't be afraid to slow down. I validate the desire for things to heal quickly. And unfortunately, that's not the way this works most of the time. And so, really allowing yourself the time to slow it down and give yourself the opportunity to really get to know what your body's telling you, both partners. This is not just for women, this is for men too. Slowing down and learning what your body's trying to tell you and listening and honoring that as you're moving forward in the relational repair work.
Beautiful. It's hard work. Some of the hardest work you'll ever do. And I will just say it pays dividends. And it will not only benefit you, but it will benefit all that you interact with. If you have kids, if you have coworkers, if you have friends, like it just ripples out. And I see that over and over again. And so, yes, you are worth doing the work for, and it will bless everyone that you come in contact with.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode, this bonus episode with Alana and I. And if you want more information about our upcoming couples intensive or any of the individual intensives, we have almost one a month that we do at Choose. And I love what we do because they're not just like you sitting there listening. We try to give you experiences. So when we say experiential intensive, we really mean you're experiencing the healing as it's happening. Check our show notes because there will be links to register. And you can always reach out to Vanessa at our office and she can give you more details, or reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to share more information with you. And so we appreciate you being with us today.
All right. We'll see y'all next time. At Choose Recovery, we do a lot of intensives, but there is one in particular that I am so excited about. It is the Rebuilding Us Intensive. And this is for couples who have been through betrayal, but have put in a lot of work and are ready to dive into some deeper emotional work. But they feel like there's something missing, that they need that extra support to take their relationship to the next level. So this intensive is going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, March 26th to 29th. So it'll be a gorgeous time of year, depending on where you're at in the world. Come get some sunshine. What we'll be doing is we'll be using tools from emotionally focused therapy, doing the Hold Me Tight workshop, intermixed with lots of experiential activities, things like drum making and rappelling and different activities that are going to allow you an opportunity to really see each other, work together, and come and build something brand new. Because that's what we're doing here is we're not trying to go back to the way the relationship was. We're not trying to go back to old patterns. No, we're trying to break those patterns that weren't working and do something different and get that deeper level of intimacy. So if that's something that you would like in your relationship, you can go to chooserecoveryservices.com. Under intensives, you'll see the intensives for the whole year, but this one again is the Rebuilding Us intensive. And you can come hang out with myself and Hali Roderick, Morgan Ellsworth, and Luke Gordon. It will be a small, intimate group, so you will get lots of one-on-one support, along with being able to connect with others who are on the journey with you.
Hey guys, I am super excited to talk to you about our latest intensive that we have coming up. It's called Men's Journey to Wholeness. Prior to this, many of you attended Unmasked, and Men's Journey to Wholeness is the next level of recovery. It's more of phase 2 recovery. It's a relationship with self, so we can have a relationship with others. You're welcome to join us in the beautiful Spanish Fork area, and we are going to be having this on March 12th through the 14th. But let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a 3-day intensive. There's going to be a lot of transformational connection going on. That's going to be the focus. We're going to dive into the work, and we're going to have a pretty intense schedule. So here's going to attend. We're open to all men. So whether you attended the Unmasked intensive or not, it's okay. The focus is we're going to be building deeper relationship with yourself. A lot of times men are trying to kill that part of them that made these horrible choices. They don't like that part of them. We're going to identify that part of us, and we're going to allow us to see something that we haven't seen before. We're going to understand that the healing, the wounds of those parts of ourselves, that is actually being carried in a burden. And we're going to create some awareness around it. We're going to learn about how your protective parts protect and how they've shielded you from things and how they're still shielding you from things. And we're going to release some of those burdens. The principles are inspired by the book, No Bad Parts. There's going to be activities. There's going to be experiential workshops. There's going to be hands-on exercises. There's going to be a lot of guided support. There'll be a couple surprises. You won't be sworn to secrecy, but it's going to be pretty fun to see everybody engage in the type of activities we have coming up for you. And let me tell you what a fair outcome might be if you decide to do something like this. By the end of the intensive, you're going to be able to embrace a part of yourself that maybe you haven't before and have some awareness around it. Much deeper connection with yourself and removing some of those barriers that keep you isolated. Also unburden yourself from the heaviness of the secrets. The secrets might be out there, but the burden of sharing parts of you that you just don't feel like you can share with other people. We'll give you some direction on how to sign up. Space is limited. I hate saying that. Definitely want you to hurry to registration. Reach out to us if you have questions. We can definitely have a conversation about it. We will give you more information about how to sign up in the notes of this podcast and on our website. Hopefully we can see you there.
Are there times you feel overwhelmed at the amount of resources and books available for betrayal trauma and addiction? Do you ever wonder where to start? Are you looking for a safe space to explore and process the various aspects of recovery? I'm Rachel Strong-Smith, and I am offering a group for women to come together to study and discuss a specific recovery book written by a professional in this field. This psychoeducational group will meet twice a month for a period of 3 months and be filled with group insights about the book that we are reading. As a social worker, I will facilitate the group by creating a space to explore questions and conversations, perspectives, and applications of the reading. There are many rich sources of information out there. Learning and growth are strengthened in community. Let's discover how these many resources can add to our life and the recovery process. Head over to chooserecoveryservices.com for more information and to sign up. I look forward to seeing you there.